Let's go.
Hello and welcome to the George podcast. We're here with Rishi Sunak and some questions.
The MP of Richmond. This should be exciting. I'm very nervous right now.
You guys know I just did this other podcast last week, actually.
I saw that.
Do you see that? With Nick Robinson, who does the Today programme for the BBC.
We saw.
Yeah.
So I got a dry run. I told him he was just practice for me. For you guys. This is the main event. So here we are.
All right.
So where did you go to secondary school and what type of school was it?
So I was very fortunate to go to this amazing school called Winchester College, and it's in Hampshire, and it's a very old boarding school, but it's absolutely marvellous place.
Yeah.
What were your favourite subjects and why?
Favourite subjects, right? Well, Winchester has this very special subject called Div, which is a hard to explain mix of lots of different subjects all in one. So you can study anything from space and black holes to art and art history and contemporary art, poetry to current affairs to meditation, you name it, whoever your teacher was. And every year you had a different person for your div, like a form teacher, and they could teach you whatever they wanted really, and it was not examined, no exams. That was very good, and you could just have a really interesting chat about lots of different things. So that was one of my favourite things. But on the more traditional subjects, I'd say my two favourites were economics, which is absolutely my major academic love. I love economics. I'm an economics. I still read lots of economics. That was my favourite thing. I was so excited to start studying that when I was I think started at 16. And English literature, mainly because I had two amazing teachers for my English A level, and they taught together. And they taught us all. We did everything from Paradise Lost, John Milton. Have you guys done any?
No.
Are you English literature people?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, hopefully we did everything. So we did Canterbury Tales, so Chaucer, which was brilliant. There was lots of fun. We did Milton. We obviously did Shakespeare. We did lots of 18th century stuff, and they combined it as well as teaching us the English. They combined it with teaching us a little bit about the history of the era as well.
That's what I was doing as well.
Yeah, which is really great, and it just really brings it to life. So I remember we were studying some of the Alexander Pope and Rape of the Lock, but also at the same time studying Hogarth and all these brilliant cartoons essentially of that era, depicting lots of fun scenes. So economics is my major nerdy passion, which I still read lots of economics blogs in my spare time.
So did you have any interest in school outside of studying?
Yes, I played quite a bit of sport. Cricket was probably the thing I was best at. So I played to the highest standards. Never quite made the first, which much to my disappointment. But I played a lot of cricket, and I played football, and I also edited the school paper for a year with some friends, which was a lot of fun. And a lot of late night. The paper used to come out on did it come out on a Monday? I think it came out on a Monday from memory. I think it came out on a Monday. And so whatever the night before, there was a lot of late nights, always the night before, and then you would go around at whatever time you finished delivering.
Yeah, that's similar to.
Oh, do you guys have the same thing?
That's pretty much that's what we do with the podcast. We record them and then I'll take them home
and edit.
I'll edit them and then I'll run over to his because he has better Wi-Fi than me, so we can upload them.
Tell me about the Wi-Fi problem. One of my major passions as your MP is to get better broadband for everybody. But because this is the days before it was all physical, so we would edit this thing on a computer, which was I don't know what it was called. It was the one after the BBC, the white one. I'm sorry, it'll come back to me. But anyway, it was before our regular PCs. But we did this thing, and then we would get a special key to the kind of school photocopying area to print all these copies, which only we had late at night. Print this thing and then deliver it by hand, overnight.
Were there any important life lessons that you learned in school?
Oh wow. Important life lessons. Well, you know what? I was at a boarding school, so you were there. Obviously, you were away from home. It was a long day. So probably the most important thing there is independence. And alongside independence is a general thing, but self-motivation. It was kind of really teaching you to be able to just figure out your own life a bit, in a sense. Homework was not, here's the homework today, hand it in tomorrow. It was much more, here's all the stuff you need to do for next week. You kind of organise your own time and figure out when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, and that you can't get your parents to help you with everything. So it teaches you that independence and that self-motivation. So that's probably the biggest kind of life lesson. And the other one, actually, funnily enough, I actually had a school reunion just last week, and it was fun. So I was catching up with a bunch of my friends, and you might still see them anyway. But the other great thing is it reminds you of the value of friends. The friendships you form. I think especially when you're at secondary school. It's a very formative phase in your life, right? Those teen years, and you have those friends, and we're still. I mean, we grew up together, right? So everyone's doing their own things. Everyone has kids. Everyone's got jobs, but those memories, those friendships, that's pretty special.
Do you have a funny story you can share with us from your school days?
All right, well, I can share in public, right? for a different question. Filter through stories and find one that's kind of appropriate. We were having quite a lot of memories actually at our reunion thing last week. So well, it's appropriate. No, well, I found out actually we were talking about it last week because our form teachers were also there, and he was actually talking to us about this thing. So I was at school during Euro '96, which you guys won't remember, but European Championship when it was back in England for the first time, and that was a big deal because we hadn't had a big football tournament in England for 30 years. We hadn't won anything in a very long time, and we had a lot of expectation. And we had this great song, which do you guys actually they redid it for one of these World Cups? The Badil and Skinner three lions. Football's coming home, right? So that was the original time of that song. So it was really it was a big deal. I mean, I was 16. It was a big deal. That whole thing. One of my best friends from school was a Spurs fan, and there were lots of Teddy Sheringham who were Spurs fans from the team anyway. But we were at school, at boarding school, and we did a lot of homework and all the rest of it. And I can't remember which games it was, but he and I desperately wanted to watch the football. So we had managed to smuggle in, or I'd smuggled into school some kind of old handheld TV, which is this chunky thing with a big aerial that you could kind of receive a TV signal from, but obviously didn't work brilliantly, and it was some very old thing. So I smuggled this thing in, and we had to go up to the top during the time we were meant to be in our class or whatever doing homework in the evening. He and I kind of nipped up to the top of the school in this attic to go watch TV because in case you could get a reception, and I'm trying to think what game it was. Anyway, it was an England game or some other game. Anyway, we were jumping up and down, someone scored, we were kind of singing, and it was like the scene from a movie because we were totally absorbed in the moment. And then obviously turned around, and standing at the doorway was our teacher who was nonplussed, and it was just one of those things where and he'd already told us once, by the way. Sorry, the other thing is he'd already busted us once a few days before and told us to take this thing home, which we obviously didn't listen to. But in any case, it was just one of those. We were kind of in full embrace, screaming and shouting 3 lines, and then you turn around and they're like, "Oh, yeah, there's a lot of trouble." Anyway, but we were funny enough because we were laughing about that the other night.
Back on your point of independence, we have 6 values at school, which is creativity, excellence, independence, respect, resilience, and teamwork. Which one do you think you value the most and use most?
Those are great, actually. Well, there's a couple that we talked about independence already, actually, didn't we? There's a couple of others on that list that probably spring to mind. Resilience is interesting and something that I'd underappreciated. Probably, and so it's interesting that it's one of your values. So I read this really interesting book last year by this American, I think she's a social psychologist called Angela Duckworth, and she wrote this book called Grit, which is kind of American word for resilience, essentially. And she has done all this study, and she kind of defined grit as trying to think, basically kind of perseverance and passion in pursuit of long-term goals, right? And which I think is a good thing, feels good. But and she was showing through lots of study that is a stronger determinant of success than just being really smart, actually, or IQ. That ability to deal with setbacks and bounce back from them and just keep going is far more important than just being really smart. And that book was really interesting, and it's kind of my wife and I talk about that a lot with our kids, and how do you instill that and they're younger than you, my 2 little girls. But that's really interesting that it's on your. That's a really important thing, which I probably underappreciated as something that was important when I was younger. And the other one was there was one other one on your list that popped out at me actually.
Creativity.
Oh, that was it. Creativity again. I think especially important for you guys.
Yeah.
You're going to grow up in a world with lots of technology,
Yeah.
and ultimately technology is going to be able to do a lot more things that we do at the moment. The thing that technology is harder for computers to replace are the things that are creative. Right? We can automate and use software to do a lot of jobs now, or will far more when you grow up. It's much harder to get computers to replicate the creativity that we have. So I think that that is an increasingly important attribute.
Yeah. What advice would you give to a secondary school student in terms of making the most of all the opportunities available?
Soak it up. Do as much as you can. Do as much as you can. Really simple being, at every stage in your life, you will look back and you will think, gosh, what did I do with all my time? Because you're like, as you just get now, I'm like, God, what did I do when I had I have a new ministerial job now, and I'm in the cabinet, and I didn't have that last year, but I thought I was really busy last year. Now I look back and think, God, what I had so much free time last year when I was a junior minister, and before it was an MP. I look back at my time as an MP thinking, God, I had so much time, and then backwards. You're at uni or you're at college, you'll look back and think, God, I had all this time, what did I do with it? So my great regret is I didn't I learned the piano up to a point and I gave it up, and I wish I hadn't had time. So you've got more time than you think. So just soak lots of stuff up.
What university did you go to, and if you did go to one, what did you study?
I went to Oxford and studied philosophy, politics and economics.
What did you do before you became an MP?
So I was in the investment business. I ran an investment firm. So what did I do? I had people gave me their savings, and my job with my team was to invest them in companies. So kind of Dragon's Den style, everything from small new companies, that's called venture capital or angel investing, all the way up to really large companies that are traded on stock markets, finding companies that are undervalued, a bit like a famous investor called Warren Buffett. So we invest people's savings, hopefully we get it right, and those companies go on to do better things, and then over time we make more money, and the people's savings grow, and they can pay pensions or pay for research or charities. All of that is good. So that's what I did. So I was talking about businesses and companies and figuring out which ones are going to work and not.
Maybe you could help me with business then, because I'm not good at that.
I'm sure.
What actually inspired you to become an MP?
My parents. My dad's a GP. My mum ran chemist where I grew up. I worked in the pharmacy, and they did the same thing in the same place for about 30 years, and I just saw what an impact they had in the community where I grew up. I thought that was incredibly inspiring. People would always talk to me about my parents. They'd be like, oh, you're Mr. Sunak's son, you're Dr. Sunak's son, your dad did XYZ, your mum did ABC for me. I thought that was great. I thought I want to be able to have that same impact on the community, make a difference, and being a good constituency MP is my way of doing that.
What advice would you give to anyone who wants to enter the world of politics in the future?
Right, hopefully there are some budding politicians in your school. I'd probably say a couple of things. One is, I think you're probably better off doing something else first. So you're going to be a better politician, you'll be better in Parliament if you've got some other experience to draw on that you can bring into the debate. It will help you make laws better and represent people better, and you'll bring something else. You just won't think about the world only through a political lens, which is a good thing. So go get some kind of real job. Second thing would be, you need to have thick skin. This is not for the faint-hearted, especially in this era of social media. People, I say, less than polite in what they might say underneath your Twitter feed or Facebook page. Instagram, at least, is a little nicer. And then the third thing is probably, you really have to enjoy people. Right? At the end of the day, I'm here to work for you. Right? My job is to serve you, your parents, your brothers and sisters. My job is to work for you. Right? I'm accountable to you. You've got to enjoy that side of the job. People have a right to expect their MP to be responsive to them and work hard for them. And if you just think that that's not for you, then this is not the right job for you.
Other than this, what great experiences have you actually had as an MP?
So other than this podcast, right, which is obviously a huge triumph. As an MP, I've had the serious ones. Obviously, first time you make a speech in Parliament, that was it's called a maiden speech. That's pretty intimidating. That is definitely pretty intimidating. That was quite scary. First cabinet meeting, sitting around the green table, which happened for me a few months ago. That was, I will never forget that moment when you're sitting there, Prime Minister, members of cabinet in that room where all this amazing stuff has happened. That was great. So those are the kind of serious things. The kind of less serious one though, which was brilliant, is obviously I'm lucky to represent RAF Leeming, which is nearby, as well as Catterick Garrison. And they were very nice to me at RAF Leeming when I was talking to them about various plans that the RAF had for the base, and I got to go up in one of their fighter jets. So I got to go up with the pilots in a Hawk plane, and we had quite a lot of fun. And I managed not to throw up, which was an enormous achievement given all the things that they were doing. But that is pretty unforgettable. That was great.
Who's the most interesting person you've met?
Right, most interesting person I've met. Probably. I sat next to her at a lunch a few years ago. Her name's Condoleezza Rice, and you may or may not know who she is. Now, she was the equivalent of the Foreign Secretary in America for George W. Bush when he was president, and I find her totally inspiring and fascinating as a person. So she grew up. She's African American. She grew up in the deep South in Birmingham, Alabama, in the States at a time where the US was racially segregated, and obviously Birmingham was the centre of some quite important events in the civil rights movement. So she grew up there, and which was interesting story in itself. But she's a concert pianist. So she's a concert level pianist. She's played for the Queen Elizabeth when she visited here. She played in Buckingham Palace for her. So she's a concert level pianist. She was the Foreign Secretary, so she's a complete scholar when it comes to foreign policy. She's and she's also a total amazing person at American football. So she could be a football coach. She has amazing knowledge about American football, and she was I went to graduate school in America at a place called Stanford. She used to be what's called the provost, so person in charge of that university, and she's total nut for the Stanford football team. And so I just think she's an incredibly inspiring and accomplished person, and her story, I read her book before I met her, and I found it quite an inspiring story. I have two little girls, and I had her scribble a note. For them, they were just little at the time, because I just thought, I hope when they grow up they can see this experience of someone growing up in those circumstances to end up being as successful as she has been. I thought that sets an incredible example for people. So yeah, she was fascinating to talk to.
This is a bit of a different question, but what's your favourite film and why?
Right, you listened to that Nick Robinson podcast, did you?
Bits of it.
Yeah, so that came up in that. So my favourite film is Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and so my favourite, Star Wars in general are my favourite movies. Probably out of all the Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back probably is my favourite.
Number 6.
That is number 5.
Oh, number
5. So the original number 2, but it is episode 5 of the thing. So that's probably my favourite. Although I slightly controversially of the ones that were made afterwards. The first 3, so to speak. I think that the last half hour of the last one of those of episode 3, when Anakin goes rogue, and the music is amazing, cinematography is amazing, and obviously he just goes on this massive lightsaber thing. That I think is incredibly brilliant, even though those films as a general are not great. That bit of it is very good. And Rogue One I thought was, Rogue One, which is again slightly different, but was fantastic.
Do you prefer Coke or Pepsi?
Do you ask everyone this question, or not? No, I'm only funny because I'm a massive. So one of these things that not that many people know about me. So I collect Coca-Cola things.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I'm a Coke addict, total Coke addict, Coca-Cola addict.
Yes,
just for the record.
I was going to say,
just for the record, just being totally clear. I am a Coca-Cola addict. I have 7 fillings to show for it. So now, yes, exactly. I'm getting in trouble, but no. So I generally do have 7 fillings because I got through a lot of the stuff when I was young, which is very bad. So people should don't do that. But I now have one a week. I'm only allowed one a week now.
So
but I'm an enormous Coca-Cola fan. Coke, yes, I won't drink it. No Diet Coke, no Coke Zero, never any Pepsi. And actually, my favourite drink is not even Coke. It's called Mexican Coke. because you get it. It's this special Coke, which is the only place in the world where Coke is made with cane sugar rather than high fructose corn syrup, for the people that are really interested in this kind of thing. So if anyone's traveling in Mexico or the southern states of America, you can get Mexican Coke. It tastes amazing, and I thoroughly recommend it, but only one a week, so you don't end up with 7 fillings.
Was it me? Oh, right. What's your favourite song?
Oh gosh, I probably don't have one favourite song.
Artist, like musician?
Do I have? I mean, I like a lot of. I listen to a lot of. I mean, I listen to Capital a lot, and I listen to a lot of pop music, a lot of hip hop, R&B. I probably the one song I sing probably the most is I'm a football fan. I'm from Southampton. I'm a big supporter of our football team from there, which is called the Saints, and our song is "Oh When the Saints Go Marching In." So there's a favourite song for you.
Which fictional character would be most exciting for you to meet in real life?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, I guess half fictional, a bit cheating. It's actually probably my favourite book, because when you said fiction, I'm thinking of all my favourite books. My favourite book, or one of my favourite books of all time, is a book called Boy and Going Solo, which are Roald Dahl's autobiography. I love Roald Dahl, and those two books together are one of my absolute all-time favourite books of all time. And even though he's a real person, not fiction, he's kind of in the story. So Roald Dahl, I would love to. I'd love to talk to him about. I would have loved to talk to him. That'd be amazing.
Because it was Mental Health Week last week, I think. When you're having a bad day, what do you do to make yourself feel better?
Right, there's a lot of bad days in this job. What do I do? Well, if I'm on my own and I need a boost, I have an emergency, if an emergency pull here thing that someone in my office keeps for me. Lisa in my office keeps this kind of, as I said, like an emergency exit thing, which is my box, which has got always a can of Coke and a Twix, actually. So my can of Coke and Twix is my kind of comfort, like cheer myself up thing, which is always kept in my office for me. But beyond that, probably actually, I either call my wife or go talk to her in the evening. She's pretty good at giving me tough love most of the time. All my kids, and I was saying I have 2 young girls. For the most part, they don't really know or care what's going on in my life. So, however, it's not that they're interested in me helping them with whatever they're doing, or this drama in the playground, or try and plait their hair in this particular way, or build this Lego, or this, anyway. So, or why can't we have a dog? Conversation. So that in 5 minutes, you basically don't have a chance to worry about your own problems because they've taken over. So they're quite handy that way.
If you could have dinner with anyone from history, who would it be?
Other than Roald Dahl,
Oh yes, I've said Roald Dahl. Yeah. Gosh, well, I'm allowed to have a dinner party rather than one person. I have a few people. Who would I like? I think. I tell you, one of the people I'd love to talk to is William Wilberforce, who is a Yorkshireman who is famous. He was an MP. And my predecessor, William Hague, who used to be your MP, wrote an amazing book about him, actually, which I thoroughly recommend. William Wilberforce is famous for abolishing the slave trade, and in the 1800s, and that story of how he did that is amazing. And he did it through Parliament. So obviously, I'm an MP, and he was never in government. He was not minister, he was not prime minister, he was not cabinet minister. But as a kind of ordinary MP, he conducted this campaign over about a decade or more to get. And when he first started, everyone thought he was crazy, and by the end, it was accepted wisdom, and it was largely down to, obviously, lots of people helped, but he pioneered that. There were moments of great parliamentary oratory. It was probably the first campaign. Now it's all normal. We write petitions and we lobby people. They did that for that, and that was probably the first time it had really happened, that all around the country people were writing in petitions and sending them into Parliament. It was one of the first organised campaigns for something. And obviously, abolishing the slave trade was something that Britain was, a leading country in at that time, so something we should all be very proud of. And he, doing that, did it, and that's pretty amazing.
In a recent survey by Halifax, Richmond was voted the best place to live. Why do you love Richmond?
Why do I love Richmond? It's probably not the mainstream answer, but I do love the food. in Richmond. So I was just before I came to you. I just go to a couple of my favourite places. So I love having breakfast at the station, which I wasn't able to do today, but I love the breakfast at the station, which is great. Mocha is brilliant. So I was just in there earlier today. Obviously the chocolates are amazing, but I get tea and cake in there. And then the pies at Taylor's. I've just had my lunch. I have lunch on Fridays. It's always pork and apple pie from various different establishments. But obviously, Taylor's in Richmond, so I'm gonna go. I love Richmond because of the food.
Yeah.
Mocha, Taylor's, and breakfast at the station.
Yeah. Well, that was all the questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh right, gosh, we're done.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, brilliant. Really good to meet you guys. Gosh, this is very good. Yeah. Very good. Nick Robinson, eat your heart out.
Okay.